Hey guys, welcome back to my podcast, and we are in our second episode. So, if you're listening and you're a working mom, especially if you recently returned to work after maternity leave, this episode is for you. So, today I want to go back to something I wrote on LinkedIn in 2024. I didn't expect it to resonate with so many women at the time. And that's exactly why I want to talk about it again. So, when I prepared for my third maternity leave in 2023, I was the head of operations for a BPO company. And so I planned carefully, I transitioned responsibilities, and I made sure my team was covered. And there was a clear timeline, a clear end date of my maternity leave. So, because of that, it felt manageable. And then, what I didn't expect was that the hardest part wouldn't be stepping away from work, it would be coming back. When I returned, it felt like entering a completely different world. I had missed months of conversations. Team dynamic had changed too. Processes had moved forward. And at the same time, I had changed too, physically, emotionally, and mentally. And of course, postpartum doesn't end when maternity leave ends. You carry it with you when you return to work. So somehow the world still expects you to show up at the same way you always did. And that was tough. And I realized I was coming back as a different person. Physically, I was still recovering. Mentally, I was constantly switching between uh, work and mom mode. And emotionally, I felt stretched. Even I couldn't fully explain why. So I expected myself to ease back in, but I also expected myself to perform the same way I always had. And those two expectations didn't match. So, what I didn't understand then was that adjustment isn't instant and it's not something you can just push through. So, it means working differently, measuring productivity differently, and being honest about your capacity in that season of your life. And I thought I was failing. Then I later realized that was part of me transitioning. And there's also a perspective I didn't have before, um, before I became a mom. And remember, I was single and very focused on my career. I thought, I understood working parents, especially working moms. And I was around 25, 26 at the time. So there was this time when someone missed work because of childcare. I remember thinking, why can't this be figured out? Work is important. I was upset about it and just, couldn't believe that she couldn't figure it out, like what to do, right? And can't come to work. So I wanna say this honestly now that I was wrong. Because when you have a child, especially a baby, your world doesn't just shift, it revolves around that baby, right? And there are things you can outsource no matter what, and life doesn't always follow a schedule with a baby, right? The schedule follows the baby, and it that's any situation with a baby doesn't really care whether you have a client meeting or you have a report, a deadline you need to send to your boss, right? So that's just now how it works. That's just now how it works. And I also remember having this conversation with a colleague, Carla. I was actually pregnant with my first child at the time. So she told me that when I become a parent, I'll be kinder. Well, maybe she was preparing me for the change, or maybe she thought I needed to be a little less mean. Maybe that's why she said that. But now, every time motherhood shifts my perspective, I think about that moment and I smile because she was right. Right. I think I had more compassion now compared to, my myself um 10 years ago. I'm a totally different person, and that realization changed as well how I listen, how I lead, and how I think workplaces should support moms. And all of this realization eventually show up at work too, because returning after maternity leave isn't just emotional, it was operational. It affects how you work, how you think, and how you show up every day. And that's where the weight really starts to show. And then there's the guilt. Now, the guilt for not being fully present as a mom, and the guilt for not meeting your own expectations at work, and the guilt for needing help just to keep things running. And at home, I asked for help. My husband, my mom, we even hired two nannies to help us at home. And while that support was necessary, it didn't remove the mental load. You know what I mean? Like, you're still constantly thinking about home and the kids, because managing help is still work, right? You're still managing help. Like, you just don't hand it over and, forget about it, right? So, what made it harder was the assumption. Sometimes those assumptions come from others, sometimes it comes from myself. That because I've done this before, this is my third child, I should already know how to handle it, how to handle things. But the truth is, every return to work is different. Every child is different, and experience doesn't make the transition easier. It makes it more complex. And there were times I questioned myself for wanting to keep working while also wanting to be fully present as a mom, because sometimes work culture makes it feel like you have to choose, right? And for me, working means security, stability, and independence. And in the country like the Philippines, that matters. Because for so many working moms, continuing to work isn't just about ambition, it's not about the career, it's about survival. Because bills don't stop, prices keep going up, school, healthcare, food, house rent, all costs more every year, right? And even when people say just live simply, well, I understand the thought behind it, but for families, that's not enough. Working moms already make sacrifices, yet support during major life transition is still limited. And if there were stronger policies in place, this conversation would look very different. But that's not the reality for many moms today. So, for many of us, continuing to work isn't a preference, really. It's a necessity. And that's why I think the adjustment shouldn't fall on moms alone. Workplaces should or need to recognize the economic reality mothers face, and then also government needs to support moms in practical ways. In this economy, this shouldn't be controversial. It should be understood, right? And well, one thing I wish I had understood earlier in this was, when you plan your maternity leave, don't just plan for the time away. Plan for your return. And that's usually where overwhelm happens. That's when you burn out. It's few months after you return to work. Workplaces need to normalize open conversation with new and returning moms, because there should be real discussions about schedules, and work arrangements, especially for employees who have been with the company for years, because they've earned that flexibility and it shouldn't feel like an exception or a favor, right? And on managers, especially HR, they need to be trained to lead with compassion and not assumptions that this mom, are just making excuses, right? So productivity may look different, honestly, but for a while, but you'd see that the commitment doesn't disappear. It's retention. It's part of retention. It's how you keep experienced, capable people who already know the business, who already in the company for several years. And it's something we should be talking about more openly. So anyway, returning to work after maternity leave has been one of the biggest learning curves of my life. And it taught me patience, self compassion, and how to redefine what success looks like in this season of my life. And I don't have everything figured out. I don't, and I don't need to. I'm finding a new kind of balance, one that fits who I am now, what I am now. And here's what I want you to remember about this episode. To every working mom, whether you're a VA working from home, in an office, in a store, at home, running your business, building something on your own, or doing all of it at once, if you're quietly holding everything together, this is for you. And the path isn't linear, I know. It's gonna be messy, unpredictable, and full of moments where you doubt yourself. Like for me, I seriously doubt myself every day. I doubt myself doing this podcast, but I do it anyway. I doubt myself whether what I'm saying here makes sense, but I do it anyway. I just because I need it. I find it therapeutic. And you inspire me. And you remind me why this conversation matters, and you give me the courage to keep going. And so if you're listening and wondering if you're doing enough, yes, you are. Because you're already doing better than you think. So don't doubt yourself. Because just the fact that you're a mom and you're raising kids, that's already, you know, an amazing thing to do. I think that's it. I hope you enjoy your day and